Keith here to give voice to Chris Ray's Gears Tactics review. Now, it's no secret what my feelings are when it comes to Gears of War as a series. I've explained as much in my preview of Gears Tactics at the end of last month. Simply put, I really don't enjoy my shooty bang bang fun being taken up by me essentially becoming one of the ducks in a duck shooting gallery at a carnival. If I wanted that, I'd just start up Rainbow Six Siege. Gears Tactics, on the other hand, gives me reason to love the cover, the chest-high walls, all while remaining firmly rooted in the series in every possible way. So we've got big burly men in suits fighting off an invasion? Yep, that's about the gist of it. Because let's face it, the series is notoriously terrible at any form of real development. Whenever they get to the talky bits in the past, I just found it easier to zone out. The talk of dead or missing relatives juxtaposed with the ooh-rah macho nonsense, the glib one-liners, and the foiling of locust or lambent plants with nary a thought towards character development made my brain crave more alcohol than my liver could probably handle. That and the story of Gears, what I remember of it, is just bad. On the subject of dead relatives and bad storylines, Gears Tactics subverts the former and mostly continues with the latter. So rather than having a character that is whining about a dead relative, here you get to take on the role of a dead relative. You are Gabe Diaz, father of Gears of War's 4 and Gears 5 protagonist Kate Diaz. And in traditional Gears fashion, you're a big burly hulk of muscle. Not a ghost though. This is Gabe 12 years before the events of Gears of War, 2 years after Emergence Day. This isn't the simple kill all the baddies story though. Here you'll have to kill one particular baddie, and that is Ukon, who you may know as the locust scientist that created the big creatures from the series like the Brumak and the Corpser. I didn't know this before playing Gears Tactics because I don't know if Ukon was covered in one of the 5 core games or if it was in one of the comics or the books, but I know now and so do you. As you progress through the story, you'll find yourself fighting the Brumak and the Corpser and so many other recognizable members of the Locust Horde, as well as quite a few lines you've heard many times before. Scratch one, grub! You'll also find yourself meeting up with some of the stranded people left behind afterwards. You know what? I'm not going to try and explain. I've already told you enough of the story and standard for Gears of War, so, well, mostly poor. There are some good elements. Some of the characters, particularly Gabe, seem to have actual personalities. Indeed, there's even some character development with Michaela Dorn. I would argue that the Coalition, who have contributed to Gears Tactics with developers Splash Damage, are actually better at writing Gears of War than Epic was. Some surprises happen, and there are some twists and turns along the way, secrets, abilities, everything you've encountered before in similar games. There's nothing here that will make the game stand out as a beacon of storytelling and script writing. Will you get invested in the story? Well, if you found yourself interested in the franchise so far, then yes. If you haven't, well, then it's likely no. Will it make sense, and is it backed up by some fantastic voice acting, enhanced by characters that I can't help but find more relatable than others in the series? Well, yes to all of those. Gears Tactics looks great, sounds great, and plays fantastically. That's the real selling point of these games. The gameplay. Even XCOM can't be praised for its story, with its best being from emergent gameplay above everything else. Now, before we get to the gameplay, let's expand on the looking great. It's brown and gray in traditional gritty Gears fashion. The textures are fantastically detailed, characters, enemy, and building models are all top-notch, and the animations are, well, for the most part, brilliant. I mention this now because I wanted to highlight the dullness of the grays and browns can actually be broken up, thanks to character customization. You can paint your equipment all sorts of vivid colors if you want to, letting your characters truly stand out as a fashionista in this drab, dull world of death, despair, and locusts. Now, we've teased about the gameplay for long enough, and, well, it's excellent. It's up there with any other turn-based tactic game that you could think of. The core gameplay is very much what you expect from a game in this genre. Your units have a set number of action points, though this varies depending on equipment and more. And you have to choose to move, attack, or use abilities like Overwatch or whichever you've selected while leveling up your characters. That, or you could just chainsaw your enemy to death. So, when it comes to character customization, the class and, as a result, the weapon is set. You can get other types of weapons by killing specific enemies enemies and picking up theirs. But they have a limited shots and are that specific moment in the game. This is to say that there's no grand strategy style base building or development. The way you develop your character is by leveling them up, selecting their skills as you level up, and as well as equipping armor and attaching weapon upgrades that are collected from battles, either by completing core or side objectives or sending a unit to crates that happen to be on the map. The structure of Gears Tactics is fairly simple. You'll move from story mission to story mission, but now and then there will be an interval where the game has you do side missions. The number you need to do depends on which act of the game you're in, and there are 4 different types. Think of these as the randomized missions in XCOM, where you'd get whatever objective it is and a map reused or very similar to that of recent story missions. All of this sounds so very similar to other games in the genre, so what makes it stand out other than being well developed? Gears Tactics does have some interesting features, including using cover is naturally a major element, and the game encourages you more than normal to head into it. When moving, your range can actually be extended by around 5% if you're going to be finishing while in cover. It's a great little tweak that I now think every game should have. Think of it as like a sprint mechanic. A soldier would naturally have an extra bit of exertion to end into a safe position. Another element is the multi-stage boss fights that resemble Gears of War games more than I ever thought it would. The pattern recognition you've required for creatures like the Brumak and the Corpser are here in fine form. Only now you have the camera angle looking down above you, and you've got a bit more time to plan your moves. More than that, you plan the team based on the sort of way you want to win, with what are essentially 4 skill chains per character and the aforementioned use of action points. I should mention that there are some interesting features here related to the action points. When shooting an enemy, you can put them down into a down state rather than, well, just dying. In this state, you can run up to them and perform a brutal Gears of War finisher on them, which also gives all of your units an action point. Now beware, because some enemies' death abilities, though, like one that spreads poison clouds, also be wary of emergence holes where the enemies will try to dig up and flank you. Bear a grenade for those. So you have a certain number of action points, but you're not restricted to movement and attack phase. You do whatever you want with those action points. It's a level of flexibility that I can't help but to admire, especially in a game from an oh-so-rigid series. This combined with a very strong enemy AI that will challenge you, as well as the selection of core story missions with enough variety to keep you interested. Gears Tactics stands out with having excellent gameplay that I honestly didn't expect from the spinoff. All of this praise isn't to say that Gears Tactics isn't without some flaws. I've noticed a few bugs and issues here and there, although nothing that truly detracts from the game. Some are even funny. One such example is where my sniper, which I named after myself, would randomly disappear. Now I'm all for stealth technology, but it just doesn't have the same effect when the grubs can see a floating sniper rifle. Kinda gave them something to target. Okay, so that's more an amusing anecdote than anything serious. The real issues can be with how imprecise at times the game wants to be. When I'm going in for an execution and I want to choose where my character finishes up, ideally in cover, it's very irritating when the game requires way too much persuasion. Just let me finish an enemy off from behind. Believe me, I'm not that honorable that I won't stab someone in the back. The issue appears for Moment in general. More than a few times I've seen the game show the cover icon only for the soldier to stop maybe one step away and just be standing there like a brain-dead Gears of moron that they are. As for other issues, I can't even complain about the usual Gears of War problem where it's boring shade of gray and brown thanks to the character customization, letting you paint your character's armor a lovely vivid shade of purple. Well, for when you can see it. The complaints are truly minor in the grand scheme because Gears Tactics is a bloody good game. Well, that sentence kind of ruined this whole section here, but this was meant to be a roundup and the review, and that sort of just gave it all away. So yes, simply put, Gears Tactics is a bloody good game. I would argue, being the strategy aficionado that I am, that this is the best game in the whole Gears series. While it may not be the best base building elements like games like XCOM or Phoenix Point have, the gameplay, character, and team building more than make up for it. If I were to make a simple statement about Gears Tactics, which I will, is that Microsoft is bucking all the trends with it. Games like this are meant to be designed to be the cheapest level of milk money from fans of a franchise, and at most you could regularly hope for is average. Gears Tactics is great. It's not flawless, but it's far better than I ever hoped it could be. For more on this and other news, follow the link in the description and make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell so that we don't miss you in the next one.